Hey, this is Warren Redlick. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to talk about when to sell Tesla. I'm wearing the Tesla Nair t-shirt, which you can get at elonbits.com. This is one of my best shirts, one of my favorite shirts. A lot more Tesla Nairs these days with the stock going up. So a lot of people ask me whether it's about my Tesla stock or about my recent Tesla options purchases. Well, Warren, when do you sell? And people have this idea that, well, when the stock goes up 3x or when the stock is 2x, then I'm going to take profit. You'll hear this term a lot. I'm taking profits. There are people who, when their options get to a certain point, they take profits. And there's a very common thing that people say that you never lose money taking profits. And I don't agree with that. I think that that's missing the point that if you take profits and then the stock keeps going up, then you missed out on further gains. I think one of the common questions people ask me is, at what stock price would you sell? If Tesla hit $1,000 a share, would you sell? If Tesla hit $2,500 a share, would you sell? It's like, well, do I expect the company to continue growing? If I expect the company to continue growing fast beyond the share price, then I'm not selling just because it hit a certain price. That's not, to me, the right way of thinking. It's like maybe it gets to 2,500 a share, and I see future growth to 5,000 a share, and I see at that point Nvidia is likely to triple. Well, okay, now I want to sell some Tesla stock and buy some Nvidia because now I see a better investment. But it's not because it reaches a certain price point. It's not because my portfolio reaches a certain size. I don't think that's the right approach. So there's a couple situations when I think it makes sense to sell, whether it's Tesla stock, Tesla options, or frankly, any other financial asset. The first thing is, and this is the big one for people who are investing for the long term, is when you see a better place to put your money. So, for example, I recently did sell a Tesla option. It was for June 2025. I'm not as confident about the short term performance of Tesla stock going out to June 2025. I know what the stock would have to get to for that option to be 2x. It was 2x at that moment. Like, you know what? I don't know if it's really going to get where it needs to get by June to get where I want. So let me sell it. And I bought options out to January 2027. I'm a lot more confident about January 2027 than I am about June of 2025. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but the whole idea is I thought, that asset that has a strike date of January 2027, it's still Tesla. I'm still investing in Tesla, but I wasn't confident with that particular asset. I was a lot more confident with this other asset. Same thing with selling stock or whatever you're selling. Like, well, do you think Nvidia is a better investment? Do you think Lemonade is a better investment? Do you think Palantir is a better investment? For me, I'm an all-in investor. I see Tesla as the best possible investment. I do have some ideas that at some point, maybe in 2025, I'm going to sell some of my Tesla stock and buy some Neuralink, try to get into Neuralink, because I think Neuralink is going to be really big in the future. I don't know whether I can make that happen. I think I can make that happen. And if I can, that might be worth doing with a percentage of my portfolio, about 5% of my portfolio. So that's an example. Like, would I sell Tesla stock if I thought I could get into this? It's kind of like diversification into another Elon company. Could I get into Boring Company? Maybe that would make sense. I like SpaceX. I don't know that I'm going to invest in SpaceX though, but Neuralink for that's an example. So when you see another stock that you would rather buy, that you feel more comfortable with, or it's close, like right now, I'm basically all in Tesla. If I believed that Nvidia was going to grow just as fast as Tesla, and I was as confident in the growth of Nvidia as I am of Tesla, then it would make sense to sell some Tesla stock and buy Nvidia, right? If there's some other stock out there I think is going to perform even close to as well as Tesla, then diversifying into that other stock would make sense. But I see Tesla by 2030 being easily a 10x and maybe a 20x or more. So I don't see any other investment that's going to perform that well. And even with the all kinds of bumps in the road, they're going to happen, economic things, government things, there's all kinds of things that are going to happen. I'm still more confident in Tesla growing faster and larger than any other investment I can see that I have access to. So that's one. When you see another investment that you feel confident is competitive or better as an investment than Tesla, then it would make sense to at least sell some Tesla stock and buy this other investment. Like Palantir, I don't get it. I sort of get the company, but I don't understand the growth story. Lemonade, I personally think Lemonade's long-term business is going to be shot because there won't be car insurance in a robo-taxi world. So they might make money in the next 5-10 years, but long-term, I think they're done. I think Nvidia is a great company, and I think they're going to grow a lot, but are they going to 10x? Are they going to 20x? Or is it like a 3x? And Like with Tesla, I don't believe the competition is coming stuff. Is there competition coming for Nvidia? I'm not as confident that they're not going to face competition. I think they're doing really well. I think they've got modes. I think they innovate faster than anybody else, but there's others gunning for it. And I think it's less difficult to compete with Nvidia than it is to compete with Tesla on Robotaxi and Optimus. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my take. So for me, I don't see another place to put my money that's a more competitive investment for the future. The second reason that I would sell Tesla stock and that you might sell Tesla stock is when you need the money for something in the real world. So, for example, in April or so, I expect to sell some Tesla. It might be the options that I have. I might sell something to buy a Model Y. We are currently living near a transit station. We don't really need a car, so I don't currently own a Tesla. I did look, I was close to buying a Tesla, and I was just like, I can't justify selling the stock for this. We're not going to use the car that much. We drive like, once a month we go on a road trip, and then some months we go to another country and we're not going on a road trip. So what's the point? If you're going to drive the car 3 days a month, do you really need to buy one? That was the problem there. But coming in April, May, I think we're going to be moving to a place. I'm not sure. We might stay here, but we might move somewhere where we don't have access to a transit station, and then we're going to need a car. We'll see what other Tesla options are out there. I don't see myself buying another EV. If I'm going to buy, I could. It's tempting to buy like a BYD Atto 3 because then I would have to sell less stock, right? And the BYD Atto 3, where I think we're going, a city car would be good enough. But I still, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to buy a Tesla. So that's one example, is like, I'm going to buy a Tesla. That's a reason. People have said, Warren, why don't you buy a house? I personally don't think it makes sense to own a house, right? But if you had that dream property and you had that dream idea for something you wanted to build, well, then you sell the stock and you build what you want to build because that's what you want to live in, but not as an investment. Because to me, real estate is not a competitive investment. So the investment side of the theory that I'm going to buy real estate because in 10 years this is going to be worth double. Well, in 10 years, Tesla's going to 10x. So I'm paying rent. I prefer renting, and renting gives you a lot of freedom to move. If you own something, it's hard to sell sometimes. For me, that's not a solution, but it might be you need to spend some money on your kid. You need something for your family. When you don't have, and like for me, I'm making enough money from YouTube and X and the Daily Lie and Patreon. And by the way, please support me on the Daily Lie Patreon as an X subscriber or as a YouTube channel member. But as I am making enough on those platforms and that as a content creator, I don't make a lot, but I make enough that I don't really have to spend out of my assets. Sort of like breaking even roughly. Maybe once a year I have to take a small amount out, but it's not much. But if you need to finance your cost of living by selling Tesla stock, well, then, if you don't have another way of financing your cost of living, that would make sense too. I do want to say that my vision for the long term is, at some point, Tesla has reached so much, and I'm at a certain point where, okay, let's say I have $10 million in Tesla stock in the future. I don't have 10 million yet, in case you were wondering, but I do think I'm going to get to 10 million. I have this theory about how you spend out of your assets. And the theory is basically, let's suppose you didn't hold Tesla stock at this point. You got 10 million, you sell it all, and you put it in a conservative investment portfolio that earns about 5% a year. That's reliable. You're fairly confident you're going to make 5% a year on average over the next 20 years. Then you can take out 5% a year for your own personal spending and live a comfortable life. And if you have 10 million, that's $500,000 a year. Now, for me, I get to that point, I'm probably not selling Tesla stock. I'm probably not going to the conservative portfolio, but I'm probably going to limit myself to the 5% spending. And if I get to 10 million and I'm spending $500,000 a year, I'm not going to cry. Right? I don't know that I could spend 500,000. I actually struggle with, like, how would I spend that much? But that's sort of the idea. Like, you get to a certain point, you're retired and you've got to live off your assets. You want to try to guide your spending to not take more than 5% of your assets a year. If you've got 5 years left to live and you don't have anybody to give the money to inherit the money, then sure, go have a party, spend it on like crazy. But like, I don't really know how to spend money in that volume. Like, if I bought a private jet, where would I fly? The yacht, I'm not a yacht guy. Like, I don't drink, I don't smoke, don't go to hookers, don't do drugs. Eating out you can only burn so much money going to nice restaurants. So, I find it challenging to do that. You sell because you see another asset you want to buy that you think is a better performing asset than what you have. which is unlikely, or at least close, so that you know have some additional diversification in your portfolio. I got this one that's going to grow this way. I've got this one that's going to grow that way. You can diversify if they're distinct net ways they're going to grow. And then I need money for spending. Then you just got to be careful not to spend too much, control your spending so you're not taking too much out. And I think there's one other theory, which is you're planning for your family's future, and you have this pile of Tesla stock, and you're like, I want to set aside something for my family that's not as volatile as Tesla. As confident as I am in Tesla, this balanced portfolio is more reliable for the future, for providing for my children, my grandchildren, my wife, whatever. You might set aside something there, and that might be weighted differently. That might be, a half S&P 500 and half bonds or something like that. I don't personally see myself doing that, but I think that might be a sensible thing to do if you're creating a trust for family members, something along those lines for estate planning. And that's a conversation you would have to have with your estate planning lawyer about, how can I do this and still be heavily invested in Tesla stock? And because there's a fiduciary obligation on whoever runs the trust to manage the trust in a safe manner. And if you are too heavily invested in one stock in a trust, somebody might say you're not managing the trust properly. And I don't know whether it would or wouldn't be a problem. That's something you would talk to a trust lawyer about. Me personally, the joke is I'm never going to sell, but of course I will sell for those other reasons if the time comes. I don't expect to see any other asset worth investing in the near term, medium term future. When Tesla hits $5,000, $10,000 a share, I'm going to constantly look around and see if I see something that impresses me. But until that happens, I'm sticking with Tesla, except when I need money for certain purposes. And so far, that hasn't been a significant issue for me. Check out the t-shirts, the TSLA t-shirts at elonbits.com. Please support me as a subscriber on X, as a YouTube channel member, on Patreon, or on the Daily Lie, warrenredlich.locals.com. Thank you so much for watching.